YouTube, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Today, guys, we'll be talking about meta tier lists. So at the end of the month, we always have a meta tier list just to check out what good decks just came out in the Master Duel and if they are really that consistent or even if they are top tier or not. So right off the bat, there are a couple of things that were actually changed because of the previous ban list last month. But let's see if this was actually better for this month for some. Anywho, to start off our tier list, we'll have Branded Despia here. And oh yeah, by the way, our tier list is just simple tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and basically decks that you don't want to run. So, Branded Despia. I'm gonna put Branded Despia on tier 3. Basically, the Branded Fusion to 1 copy got it or attacked its consistency, and that is why it's easy enough to counter Branded Despia nowadays with 1 Ash Blossom to the Branded Fusion. Now, I do know that there are some other supports that you can add for your deck or change some engines that would make Branded Despia a little bit better. But yeah, the Branded Fusion to 1 was somewhat detrimental for the deck. But nevertheless, yeah, that's Branded Despia for you guys. Then we have Dragon Links. So Dragon Links still very prominent. At the first week of the month, it was on tier 1. But afterwards, when Mechanicos and Purelies came along the line, they were using hand traps or Nibiru's. Even the typical Kaijus got Dragon Link lower to tier 2. And I do understand this because their moral end is very significant enough for the board that having to Kaiju that, well, it broke in some of the boards for Dragon Link players. But nevertheless, it is still a really strong deck and it is still very promising, and I don't think they would actually hit this one in future ban lists. Then we have Exosisters. So Exosisters I was really hoping Exosisters and Floowandereeze to be a really better deck by the start of this month. But sadly to say, I do believe Floowandereeze got an even more potential in gaining more wins rather than Exosisters. Even though that Floowandereeze got hit on the Extravagance to 2 copies only, it still works fine. They actually add more Winged Beast monsters, and that includes 2 Rises instead of 2 Empens. What else? People are also running Fossil Dyna in some of the builds, which is somewhat degenerate in a sense, but it plays well. So Exorcisters, here you go. Don't run as well. You know what? I'm just gonna I'm gonna put Floowandereeze on tier 3, just because it's still a really good or reliable deck. Exorcisters, I'm gonna put this one on don't run. It's really hard for Exorcisters to play at the current meta, especially when Purelies and the Mechanicos came out. Having to settle on 1 Magnifica alone doesn't really strengthen the board that much. You have also Returnia that can... the Vadis that can easily be countered by an Ash Blossom. You can just play around it. Other than that, generalizing the whole problem for the deck, Kaijus and Nibiru's are along the line, and of course with the help of Duel and Luck, which is one of the most famous hand drops nowadays for most of the decks, it's going to be hard for Exorcisters to perform really well. So I'm going to put this one on don't run. The next deck we'll have is Galaxy Eyes. So Galaxy Eyes, I'm basically putting this one on don't run, because I tested the deck out and by far it was very infuriating just to test this one out. And I do believe I got a lot of consistency or a lot of wins with regards to the typical Galaxy Eyes deck, which of course you're just gonna run staples like Ash Blossom Maxi, Imperms, and Coldberry Graves. I got a lot of wins on that build rather than a copy of a lot of tech cards for that matter. Going first or going second doesn't really matter for the deck. Kashtira's, the best thing that I can get Kashtira's on is tier 3. At the current state for Kashtira's, they're still not really that good, but hopefully by next month we'll get all the supports for Kashtira's. So this will be typically around tier 1 or tier 0. Hopefully we'll have that. Currently in Master Duel, I do believe the highest that I can give this deck, tier 3. The lowest, just basically don't run this. It's typically Rogue. There are a lot of holes for this deck until they got the full support. Labyrinth. So Labyrinth, I'm going to put this one on tier 1. Really good deck, very strong, very solid deck as well. Doesn't rely mostly with the extra deck. Furthermore, the Extravagance to 2 wasn't really like a bad hit. Didn't even nerf the deck by much. Or too much for that matter, because they'll basically run the same Lady Labyrinth, Lovely Labyrinth, well, Big Welcome, and Welcome Labyrinth. Then we have Math next. I was shocked as well to see this in tier 3, and I do believe seeing the current meta for Mathmex. So having to run a ton of staple cards like a Duel and Lock, Ash Blossom Maxi almost has the same amount of significance as the previous builds when Mathmech was still a thing. Then we have Mikankos. Mikankos, I'm gonna put this one on Don't Run. Basically, this is one of the most degenerate deck that I've used. Although it got me some of the wins, or majority of the wins in the game, but there are some tendencies wherein consistency is an issue for Mikanko. Having to depend on RNG to get you the right amount of equipped cards, the right amount of Kaijus, and the right amount of Mikanko monsters on your hand. Then we have Naturia. So Naturia Runic is a really strong deck, possibly tier 2, same line with Dragon Links. It is still a really promising deck, by the way. Forgot to remove this from my previous tier list. I'm gonna put this one on Don't Run. As a sole archetype for Runics, don't run this. This is very crappy. But Natural Runic, very good. Then we have Ninjas. So Ninjas got recently added into the game. I do believe they are a really strong control deck. Setup is quite necessary for this deck, so having a ton of set cards is quite necessary. Yeah, if you're going first and you really have a good hand, by far you are winning most of your games with this. If you're going second, and yeah, some cases that you need to set those monsters or activate some cards, going second on a ninja deck is not really the best of choice for you. Then we have Punks. Punks, I would say the best variant for the Punks is with the Kashtiras. Having some level 3s and level 7s on the board can gain you access to a level 10 Synchro Monster, which is better on the floor, or a copy of Sheng Ying on the board. Furthermore, with the Kashtiras as well, controls any monster or banishes any monster from the field. Or from the field, deck or extra deck is really significant for the deck as well. Yeah, with the Kashtiras, really promising. Then we have Purilies. So Purilies just came along the line within this month, and they are a really strong contender with the Labyrinth as well. Having to rely only with one monster on the board, which cannot be it is unaffected by any type of effect. That alone, with protection from the field spell and recycling capability from the continuous spell, got it a lot better. Then we have Rikasan Avalon. Rikasan Avalon, I'm gonna put this one on tier 3. It is a really strong deck. I do believe you really need a good pilot to make this deck work. And even with that, you're still gonna do a ton of spell summons to the field, which in terms, you'll fall into a Nibiru, Maxi, Drill and Lock for some cases there. But if ever your opponent cannot counter you or counter your combo, then basically you'll have full board that is undefeated. But anywho, that is Rikasan Avalon. Let's move towards Sky Strikers. Sky Strikers, on the other hand, just works with one monster alone on the field. I do believe this is still a really good tier 3 deck. But for the sake of this tier list, I'm going to put this one on Don't Run. Far better off using some other tier 3 decks here rather than a copy of Sky Strikers. I do believe some other players will debate me on this, that Sky Strikers are really good. It's really up to you guys, but for me, for the current meta, I do believe the Sky Strikers lack something else other than like a really good end board during a turn. If you're going first with Sky Strikers, you'll have a field day, and then you'll have basically your back rows to protect you, like a copy of Anchor as a negate or a copy of Afterburner for so on. I think Afterburner is quick play spell? I'm not sure. Then we have Sprites. So Sprites, I'm gonna put this one on tier 2. Really good deck. Although the swap frag to 1 was very bad. Nevertheless, you have a ton of cards as well that can replace the Jet. So you add another copy of basically a red or a carrot. For the engine with the swap frog or the frog engine, you just basically change it to another engine. Like for example, there is one hero level 2 monster that can spell summon another level 2 from the deck. Also, a new support just came in from the Legacy Pack, which was or in a form of Ninja Mosquito, which is quite really good for the deck as well. Having to burn your opponent with the equal amount of attack on that monster alone, insanely good. Then we have Sword Soul. Sword Soul, I'm going to put this one on tier 2. Really strong deck, hasn't been changed since the semi-limit to Long Yan. Really solid deck, really simple deck as well for new players to actually go into it if they're starting their way for Master Duel or basically Yu-Gi-Oh in general. Tier Elements, here we go. Tier Elements, I'm basically putting this one on Don't Run. It was an insanely good deck, I would say, but nowadays, no. The Merly and the Miller hit was the cause that made this deck plummet into oblivion, I would say. Hopefully by next month we'll get the Kashtira tier element, and that would actually save the deck if ever that would be the case. But currently, the 3 1-offs for the Ishizu archetype, some of the supports for the tier elements quite doesn't pan out for the deck. I do believe it lacks consistency nowadays. But yeah, as of today, it's quite bad for tier elements. Then we have Trap Checks. Trap Checks, I would say, I'm gonna put this one tier 3. Really good deck as well for control. If you're going first and you set up a really good board, insanely good for you. Downside for this is basically having to depend mostly with Rapacia as your protection. Also some problems with board wipes, or yeah, kaijus typically. I think some people are still using a copy of Evenly Matched in most of the decks. I'm not sure if Duel and Luck can be significant for the deck, but a copy of Nibiru is. But yeah, those are the decks that I want to clarify to you guys on the tiers. Tell me your thoughts on the tier list that I made. I do believe you are gonna hate me on the Sky Striker into the Rogue or the Don't Run part. But yeah, tell me in the comment section below if you want to change this tier list. And that is me signing off. Keep safe, good luck. And if you like this kind of content, like and subscribe, guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. Hopefully we'll tackle hand traps. Goodbye, guys.